Welcome back, people of the internet. I'm so glad you're back joining us. And today I'm going to go over the top 10 ways that your employer is either violating your rights or treating you unfairly. Number one, your employer could be not classifying you correctly as far as your employment class. So in other words, your employer could be making you a contractor or subcontractor instead of an employee. Sometimes employers do that, and it's not really fair to the employee. They make them a contractor, a contracted employee, so that way they can save 11% on payroll taxes as well as not pay Social Security, Medicaid, and so forth. So make sure that you look into it and make sure that if the employer is controlling every aspect of the job, then you should be an employee, not a subcontractor. Number two, whistleblowing. So if you end up reporting some concerns, some illegal activity or violation of other people's rights or your own rights for that matter, and that employer retaliates and takes disciplinary action or terminates employment, you're protected under a Whistleblower Act. So anytime you're reporting something that's illegal, stick to your guns, report it. Do not let the employer bully you in any way. Number three, a way that your employer may be treating you unfairly or violating your rights. They can not discipline or terminate your employment for you discussing your salary with your coworkers. Although it's not exactly that professional, it's a little bit unbecoming of a professional to talk about what they make with other employees. It's not illegal, therefore they should not be disciplining or terminating your employment for sharing that information. Number four, if your employer fails to provide you with reasonable accommodations to help you deal with any kind of disability or needs that you have or special needs, an employer by law is supposed to help accommodate you so that you can do your job effectively. So it's inappropriate for an employer to not provide you with a ramp if you need it for a wheelchair, or just different things to help you overcome some kind of challenge to do your job. They may endure what's called an undue hardship. So be careful. It's a very small employer with a very limited budget. They may not be able to make too many financial decisions to make reasonable accommodations, but they should always attempt to make reasonable accommodations. Number five, a way it would be illegal for your employer to terminate or take disciplinary action or treat you differently and discriminate against you for one of many different factors. Number one, your age. So if you're an older employee above a certain age, they cannot treat you differently. And some employers tend to terminate the employment of older employees. And I'm going to tell you this little secret, because I've heard this directly from other business owners, that they've tried to save money by terminating older employees. This is a big hack that I think some employers are not going to be happy that I'm going to share the secret with you, that they may terminate older employees, not tell them why, because the cost of health insurance and other things are higher for them and higher premiums. I think it's not fair. I think you need to treat people with respect no matter what their age is. The next protected class area that you need to make sure that you're not treated differently is due to your ancestry. If you have a disability of any sort, again, accommodations are needed. You shouldn't be treated differently or disciplined for it. Your familial status, so that's very important, that due to your family and where you're from, that you're not discriminated against or treated unfairly. Your marital status, your ethnicity, and your national origin is something that you can't be treated differently for. And another one would be your religion. So whatever religion you practice, you should not be treated differently as a result of that. They should try to make accommodations so that you could observe the holidays that are in line with your values and your religion. The last three that are important for your employer to not treat you differently or unfairly would be based on your sex, whether you're male or female. You're in a protected class if you're a female. Another would be you should not be treated differently due to your sexual orientation. And lastly, wherever you get your sources of income, it's really none of their business, so they shouldn't be asking questions about where you get your income and judge you based on your income. Number 7, It would be illegal for an employer to treat you differently or discipline you for complaining about work conditions or where you're being treated unfairly, where you're being discriminated against, and if you complain about it on social media, they cannot terminate your employment for that. So under the National Labor Relations Act, that would be considered discrimination, and it would be unfair for them to terminate your employment. So it doesn't mean you can go badmouth your employer on social media just for the hell of it. It does mean that if work conditions, according to the law, are poor, or you have evidence of being treated unfairly and you put it on social media, they should not retaliate against you. Number 8. Now, these last 3, 8, 9, and 10, are a little bit more my own value system. I'm gonna add these in here. So they're not necessarily illegal. However, they could be if people take it to the limit. And I feel strongly that as a leader in any organization that you keep these values in high regard. Number 8 is the customer is not always right. So in other words, if the customer is treating an employee very inappropriately, making sexual comments, crude comments, lewd comments, being inappropriate towards an employee, the employer has every responsibility to protect that employee, to preserve that relationship so that they're not treated unfairly. I think there's actually a term, it's like third-party harassment. You should be able to go out ahead of these things and protect your employee from people that are harassing them that way. So the customer's not always right. Number 9, this is a little bit my own leadership suggestion, my own values. It's not that it's illegal, but I feel strongly that for-profit companies, the owner or owners should not be the only ones profiting from the success of the business. I feel very strongly that it's important that if an employer is doing better financially, that there's some kind of revenue or profit sharing with the employee. I really don't think I'll ever understand how a business owner for a for-profit company thinks that they're going to get discretionary effort out of employees for any sustained amount of time by paying them very low and continuing to earn more and more money. So it's against every bone in my body to see that happen, and I think that's just more a value system. Good leadership means sharing in the profits when you're successful. Number 10, last but not least, it's important that if someone's salaried, this is my own leadership and my own value system. When people are salaried, it doesn't mean you just abuse them and ask them to do all kinds of extra tasks. I strongly believe, and the behavioral science literature suggests, that people should be paid for performance. So if they're going to go above and beyond expectations and you're going to ask them to do additional more and more work, you don't want to punish that individual by giving them more work and then the same amount of pay, because you can guarantee that they're going to become complacent after a while, and their goal would be to avoid any extra demands placed on them. So it's very important in the long run. I mean, look, as an employer and a business owner, we're not perfect. We make these mistakes all the time, but as soon as it comes to my attention, and it's not a financial hardship, as soon as it comes to my attention, someone's doing a lot of extra work and they're not getting paid extra for it, we figure out a way to make sure they're gaining additional support from that, whether for their family or income. Since you stuck around for these top 10, we're going to throw in a bonus. So number 11, this is more of a leadership principle. It's not illegal, of course, but it goes against every fiber in my being when I hear a leader take credit for something that an employee did or where they were successful. So an excellent leader should actually be praising and noting all the contributions that employees make. If anything, an excellent leader needs to be humble and then give credit where it's due. But the worst is when a leader takes credit for something that someone else did in the organization, and then they go out there in front as though it was their discretionary effort. So they're my top 10 plus bonus number 11 of things that employers may do to treat you unfairly or to do things that are illegal. Thanks again, and stick around and please smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.